Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Tonight, of course, we'll be talking about this our verdict that has been reached regarding in the pursuit of justice and the homicides of Abby and Libby. And strange things are going on the internet, as we can see with a lot of channels. And of course, every channel has a right to do a lot of things. Um, um, they have the freedom of what they wish to discuss and what they wish to pursue in the coming days. But we have to remember that this verdict comes at the cost of the loss of lives of two absolutely beautiful, innocent children. And of course, Liberty German and Abigail Williams, and the loss of their families that will suffer that forever. And we have to be mindful that those are the names and those are the persons that we have to honor. The community will have a time, it won't be something that happens overnight for even the community to start recovering from this. There's still a lot of things that's going to be going on for the next few weeks. Only after the sentencing will there's really be a time for people to um, um, reflect upon a lot of it, because there's still going to be a massive amount of coverage from the news media and people attempting to bring a lot of attention to subject matters that for whatever their agenda, whatever the narrative is. And I've been through this throughout my life and my career of watching and anticipating the pursuit of justice and finally seeing the day in court uh, when a jury comes up with those findings and those observations of how this jury came to this conclusion and these findings. And while half of the spectrum out there is satisfied with the jury, there's a substantial number of people that have placed, and for whatever reason, of course, they have the right to do whatever they wish to pursue. But my first choice is to recognize and honor and remember both Abby and Libby, and for their impact that they had and on the lives of so many people, and will continue to have their legacy of being of how they of what went on that day, from the taking of the images, the video, and ultimately resulting in the largest CSAM investigation in the state of Indiana that probably went not only for the state of Indiana, but across state lines and within the United States, that would have an impact on so many other children and things. And for that, we have to remember them, and we should remember them. But we're also tonight going to be talking about a lot of things that what have been disappointed in finding through the presentation of the evidence and of what occurred within the court system. And we got to see from the early days of not knowing who an individual, who the offender was, to finally finding out that offender, and seeing how our court system progresses, even during the early days after an arrest is made, and we saw a circus show. Um, what should we make of that? And there's a lot of things that happened on this trial that we are all better for seeing it and understanding it, regardless of which side you stand it on, or that um, we should expect more from our court systems. We should, you know, was I disappointed in a lot of what occurred in court? Absolutely. Um, did I wish that we could have watched the trial live? Absolutely. I think our society deserves that. I think that bringing and seeing what our courts were doing in the pursuit of justice for Abby and Libby needs to be seen by everyone, every citizen in the United States that wished to tune in and see what was going on deserved that right. And so I count that as a failure. Some of the evidence that was, or some of the procedures that law enforcement and lack of effort by law enforcement, um, the loss of certain types of evidence, um, fumbles made during the investigation by everyone from CSI. Was I disappointed? Absolutely. We all deserve better. I was there. I was on those streets. I've worked all different types of investigations. I made mistakes in my life, and so I can't defend them. But the you would expect over time, because I was in the initial graduating class of CSI, and that was in the 80s. And you would expect with that with all the advancement in technologies, including DNA analysis and the recovery of that, the advances are there, and that people that are trained should be, every generation should be um, tenfold better qualified than the ones that preceded them, and have a better understanding of how to present and find and locate and process, document evidence. And we saw some failures in that. And for that, we have to see what is the answer for that and how can we move forward with that. We saw how our jails and system and the prison system was brought into for the protection of the offender. And we saw even within some of the professions, the therapists, that there was failures there. But throughout all of that and everything that was presented to the courts, we were able to see that at the end of the day, the jury took what evidence was presented to them and came back with a verdict of guilty. A lot of people have celebrated that, and a lot of people are disappointed in that. And I can't think of another case. Y'all may be able, like I said, this is a case that we worked hard or looked at. It's not one of the code cases that our foundation was involved in and that we worked on as we moved forward. But it was something that we put a lot of time in, a lot of hours in. And I'll show you some of that stuff. But anyway, we have all this that we have to look at as far as BG turning into Richard Allen, turning into this caricature versus actually being able to see him in court. It's a strange path that was taken for justice. And I hope that, like I said, I hope things occur and change in the future for the state of Indiana and for all of us as we move forward. Let me know how you feel about what went on pre-trial, during the trial. What's the biggest thing that you think needed to be focused on and changed within the system? Doesn't matter if it's the court system or law enforcement, or how a prosecutor behaves, the defense behaved. I mean, we had everything you could imagine that could affect a trial we got to see it in this, and it's absolutely amazing. So many failures on so many fronts. Let's see here. All right. But often during, on all my previous shows and everything, as we looked at this case, and we were trying from my standpoint, because this was the case that brought me to the web sleuth world through Randy, as he in the early days, and I was watching his YouTube channel, and I became aware of Delphi. And then I started working with some other creators, and then started creating content on it. And I didn't know how much content I actually created about Delphi until I looked at it today and saw some of the things and some of the topics that we looked at. And on some of those issues, I'm hoping that through my channel, and my whole purpose was to try to bring and make that anyone that was a part of my community, if they saw the trial or had any information from the trial, that they had a better understanding what was going on in that courtroom, as far as the analysis of the evidence and things. And I hope I had that impact. Don't know, but we'll see. But let me get into chat before we get too far. Let's see here. As my chair collapses here. I think that happened to Johnny Carson way back. Let's see here. Hello, Junior Johnson. Good to see you. This jury. Oh, that's a great name, this jury. Steve, looking forward to the presentation tonight. Hello, Paula. Hello, CJK. Gabrielle. Gabrielle. Yes, this we're getting wound down now with the other. Like I said, we've probably got 4 or 5 more weeks. I won't probably be covering anything else unless something absolutely unreal steps up on this one. That everything until the sentencing, I'll probably look at a little bit then. But other than that, hello, Barbara Hall. Good to see you. Boston Christian. Good to see you. There's Mustang 65. If you have any questions or any observations, absolutely let me know. Hello, James Tate. Good to see you. Corgi Mama, Marianne Tate. James is he stopped in. He had a long day. He's going to go have him a night sleep. Evening, everyone. Mr. Steve. Good. Ivy Rose. Hello. I saw you on the Drunk Turkey show there, Ivy. Dawn says, I don't agree with this verdict. That's fine. Absolutely. And, we have to have that, people that question verdicts. There's a line there, and that ensures that our court system works, because has our court system been mistaken in prior? Absolutely. And people should question and do it in a within the way the courts handle it. And so, no, I don't have a problem with it. Anyone that doesn't agree with a verdict, because we have to have that to make sure that everything does go at the end of the day, for the fact that that's where our court systems are set up. Hello, Susan. CJK, Cyber Warrior. He wrote strange things on the internet. Oh, that's funny. That's true. Matt agrees with it. Miranda Lee, hello. Corey supports the jury. But we're going to, like I said, I didn't know how much of things that we had covered. Now, these slides, that if you went on my playlist just for Delphi, and while I did these tests, and a lot of these tests were made just for Delphi, but they apply to other cases too. I recently got a email from one of my supporters about some of the testimony about some of the tracking abilities of what was found of when the expert testified about Libby's phone. I'll be doing a show more with, is that what's going to be happening with Koberger's phone? and the victims' phones, and just don't know, but we'll have to see. And Barbara states that the jurors got all the evidence. They made their decision. Justice for Libby and Abby. Rest in peace, babies. Absolutely. Well said. Corey Mama, 999 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Means a lot to us. Allows us to go out and work some cold cases and stuff. And yes, CJK, there are certain ones that have absolutely totally forgotten Abby and Libby, and they're totally focused on one name right now. We shouldn't, like I said, everybody runs their own channel, has their own opinion, freedom of speech. They can focus on what they wish. I don't have they can do what they want. I have so many different other cases that we need to focus on and everything that we will focus on. Hello, Todd. Hello, Sharon says, hello, Stephen, Mrs. Steve. The jury in this case had a difficult decision. Absolutely. Extremely difficult decision for the came back as quick as they did. I was thinking more along a hung jury when I was on Tom Webster's show the other night, and only then, once I had the opportunity to speak directly to, I think it was 4 or 5 of the people on that panel were actually at one point of time within the courtroom, and each of them were able to talk about what the feeling and what the atmosphere of the court was. And they were all, like I said, when Tom did the poll, they were all so sure of the guilty. And at that point, and as I said within that show, I felt a little ability of less tension that, yes, there's a possibility it won't be a hung jury, because if it, to me, a hung jury was going to be the worst case scenario versus either, what could have been either innocent, not guilty, or guilty. And so that was the nightmare if it was going to be a hung jury of what would be done by the courts. But as you look at these slides, and we'll go in here, that I'll flash through them right quick. I mean, we did everything over the months and years that we had, from the sketches, search warrants, FBI for Logan, Anthony shots, everything you can imagine as far as trying to read through the details and things. And of course, it turns out Anthony shots is not a part of this that we currently know. We discussed everything from motives, motivations, psychopaths. And do I think that Richard Allen is a psychopath? Absolutely. We're talking about an individual that's been convicted, that was able, after those horrible crimes, to walk along a roadway as vehicles pass, stroll along, go to his vehicle, cover it up as far as any evidence, go back into society, never and act in a manner that didn't draw additional suspicion to him. That's not normal behavior. I mean, you watch some people that run over some animal, doesn't matter if it's a deer, a cat, or a dog, they're emotionally distraught just from that interaction, from striking an animal with a vehicle. But this individual, was able to go and take the lives of 2 innocent children and then go back into society. That's not normal behavior by any means. Let's see here. The victimologies, we covered that. Keegan Klein. Some of the interesting testing that I did that I hope had brought a lot of awareness to and a better understanding of some of the CSI stuff, such as clothing and things. Oops, go back. And even the Wabash search. I mean, I didn't know I did all this stuff. I knew I did it, but I didn't know how many hours I put into it. But and how much of this came up? What did the feds do? what strategy will find be bridge guy at that time. The crime scene evidence stuff that we were discussing as far as processing outdoor crime scenes, law enforcement interviews, Robert Ives, and then of course we talked about is Evansdale connected, and of course they're not. But at that time we were looking at similarities, what we would expect to find. And I found extremely interesting that with BG's clothing at this time, because we didn't know who Richard Allen was, versus luminol. And of course, there's, is that clothing still in existence, or did he replace it? We just don't know. His vehicle, and would he be able to connect that vehicle to the crime scene? And of course, we don't have any evidence that that was. We talked about cold cases, visiting the scene. I traveled up to Delphi. Oh, I don't know. Probably I've been there half a dozen to 10 times. And I don't remember how many times, because as I go through occasionally up to Iowa, I do drive by and stop in. And so I've been there numerous times. And we did a lot of testing there. Mrs. Steve and I went up and we spent, ironically, it was the exact same time period when Richard Allen got arrested. Mrs. Steve and I, we were, or when not got arrested, but when the search warrant was going on at his residence, we were in town. We actually had drove past his house, didn't even know it, as we went to the Weber entranceway, because you have to go from town, you go right past Whiteman Road, and as you proceed and go down there and turn into the road that leads to the Weber driveway. And so found that fascinating later. But the terrain, the cell phone data testing, we did a lot of that. I wish some of that information that came in, it does this, was determined that some of the evidence, and I was pleased with some of the evidence that was presented in court, such as the digital evidence, some of the tracking information that the expert that I have the report on now that was sent to me had some fascinating information of what tracking abilities they have. And of course, we know that Richard Allen's phone from that time period is missing. And I wish we had the ability that if law enforcement can find that phone, and why the defense, because the best witness for the defense would have been Richard Allen's phone, the one that he was looking on that stop ticker. Because if they could do analysis, the exact analysis that they ran through with Libby's phone as far as movement, what would they have shown? What were those that type of testing shown? And I'm going to do a show on it, more for probably Kohlberger, but we'll look at it for this too, because like I said, it was a lot of detailed information. But the defense had the opportunity that if they could find that phone and have it analyzed, could it have proven absolutely Richard Allen is incapable of committing the crime? I believe so. That if the defense wanted to bring that, and because that phone's out there somewhere, and it's that phone data, if they ran it through the same analysis, is going to have one or two results. Either it's going to absolutely drive the nail as far as he is the one responsible, and it wasn't presented, so therefore it leads one to believe that it why didn't they go and recover that phone or put so much effort into recovering that data? Let's see. Yeah, we looked at, are there others? And I did a lot of testing as far as even with Mrs. Steve, dragging her through the wooded areas to see if what could have possibly occurred. Just don't know. And but then we got to see some of the stuff about the first days of court, the judge go issues. Like I said, there was a lot of stuff we looked at. The arrest warrants, defense attorneys, Richard Allen, being a witness, and he was a great witness for the state. There's no doubt. Richard Allen did everything he could to absolutely convict himself, and he did. Yeah, it's just interesting that if you look through these things, a day in court of him, junk science as far as being claimed about the bullet. We did some testing on that. Psychopaths, poison fruit. We talked about a lot of that stuff. The F-tree stain, the tree limbs, the importance of the tree limbs that the CSI missed. Absolutely. I hate so much that the same profession that I was involved in would leave anything that an expert would decide that, well, just because we've never collected DNA off of something, we're not going to collect this. And they left it behind. Absolutely unbelievable. The challenges at the crime scene, we discuss a lot of that. The sticks, the placements of the sticks. And now that a lot of people have seen those sticks, you'll see that, yes, there's a great feeling that, yes, the sticks were placed. Now, for what reason and by who? For why would Richard Allen place those sticks? Still haven't heard those stories, but looking forward to hearing that. The prosecution best witness being Richard Allen. The timing, how many seconds it would take as far as some of the witnesses moving to critical points. The crime scene images, what's next, the train wreck, operation. I mean, there was so much stuff. But let me get back into chat before we get too far from that. See what's going on. But if you got any questions about anything, like I said, we covered a lot of stuff on this case, and let's see, Boston Christian. Let me get back wherever I was. Appreciate everybody being here. Let's see. Hello, Todd. I'll run back down through here, see if we got any question. There's Corgi Mama's super sticker. Got back to that. That's what I was leaving there for. Oh, Corey, yes, I do. I thought I sent that email back to you. I'm sorry. I thought I sent it back. Check your spam, see if it went in, because I showed it to Mrs. Steve. I apologize for that if it didn't. Now it could be my fault because sometimes on my Google machines. Now also, I just got a new computer, so that could be the cause of it. My other computer just burned up here recently, and I'll have to check. So, but yes, those were beautiful candles. Thank you. Mustang 65 says justice for Timmy Dees. Absolutely. If you don't know who Barbara Hall is or Timmy Dees, look up the Timmy Dees case in Missouri, and you'll see Barbara's fight for justice. Thank you, Mustang 65. DP says, howdy, Mr. Steve. Justice has been served for these two beautiful angels. No one will ever forget the bravery and courage they possessed that day. Superheroes, both of them. Absolutely. If it wasn't for her quick thinking to record that video and stuff, could have went a total different way in outcome. And how important was it? One of the key, doesn't matter of how it was analyzed for months and years. That even when Doug Carter said, "I'd rather have it than not," he didn't know the importance of what he was stating that day. For the fact that we see that what during a critical moment of jury deliberation, what pieces of evidence did they ask to see? And they asked to see that video. And why did they ask to see that video? Only they know, and more than likely it was to hear that voice. But that's the importance of that one moment of video, that of ever how many seconds it was. That without that video, everybody was trying to think that the video and audio recording was just for the visuals. While there is certain things that can be gathered from the visuals, but not anything as and what was it about that video that the jury wished to look at one more time, and because it had to be have an effect upon at least one juror, or it would have never been requested. And so there was one juror that absolutely had to have another look at that video that was made by Liddy. And without that, would we be here today? Hello, Justice Jane. Susan says, I thought Richard was guilty right up to verdict. It's disconcerting to read the hate and scheming to get him off. Verdict. Then I've got to put it behind me. Absolutely. And we've got to move forward for other cases. There's a lot of cases out there to work. Hello, Alexa. Just saw you on the Drunk Turkey Show. If y'all don't know who Alexa is, she often is on It's a Crime and Shame with Sonny. Alexa is a brilliant analyst. Absolutely. Get a chance. Look her up. Marion says, my opinion, I think, is taxpayers, we have the right to have cameras in the courtroom and the way the world changes. Absolutely. Fight for justice. Thumbs up. Floor 4, Mustang 65. Thank you. The Saint says the prosecution did enough, but I was not impressed at all. But a win is a win. I'll take it all day. Yes. And will there be appeals? Absolutely. Will they be anything overturned? Who knows? That's up to the courts. It's no longer in the hands of law enforcement or the prosecutors. It's going to be left up to the court systems now, and decisions will be made for that. They want to go after the entire CSI thing with pitchforks. It's crazy. Yes, some of the things that occurred with the CSI, I'm disappointed in the CSI. Like I said, I got to be fortunate enough to be in for the state of Georgia in the initial graduating class. And it was, the way that we process scenes or crime scenes prior to the 80s was absolutely terrible. And we progressed and started having standards and expectations, and to improve the collection of evidence to ensure that when we got to court, we'd have a better understanding what that evidence told us about the crime scene. And then did we see failures here? Let's see, that was in the 90s. So 34 years later, it hasn't, there's still mistakes being made, almost as if CSI hadn't been around for 2 or 3 years. It's been around for 30 plus years, and still mistakes are made. I would have thought, with the FBI being there and all the resources that could have been brought, that there would have been more than just images of still images or photos. I was expecting that they would have brought in all the technologies as far as 3D imaging and analysis of the crime scene that would have shock and awe to the jury, where they would have seen this is the best equipment in the world brought by one of the greatest investigative agencies, the FBI, when they bring all their resources to the table. And why didn't that occur? It doesn't make any sense to me. I still have questions about the crime scene. I wish I didn't, but I do. Miranda says, in this case, it sounds like he had more human interaction in the prison system. Yes, I've often argued the fact that I believe that uh, most people, uh, just because the defense attorneys and the defendant says that this is what occurred, there's two sides of every story, and it's not always um, what. Now, did the defense absolutely have an agenda and a narrative to their reasoning of doing that? It did. It had a desired effect. There's some videos, of course, that were shown that, but even those videos um, uh, that were shown, uh, the jurors were able to look at and say and understand what part did Richard Allen play in creating that environment. Um, I haven't seen the videos yet, and I'm looking forward to see it where I can be able to put it in a better context. Um, but I've seen unruly inmates absolutely make it a undesirable environment for themselves and other inmates for whatever purpose they would want to do that. He says, Steve, I respect you so much for being willing to be critical and hold police, state, and the system accountable while fighting for Abby and Libby. Unfortunately, not an easy combo to find. No, uh, like I said, there was a lot of failures. We see it constantly, the systemic failures, even with our um, um, child protective court system. We see great failures in it all the time. And so there's got to be and how do we fix it? I don't know. That's for brighter minds than me. Yes, DP. And this is what we must remember every day, that this is absolutely that Monday was the first day uh, for justice for Libby and Abby, and that uh, hopefully and that we pray that they rest in eternal peace. Absolutely. Where is Ruckus? I spoke to him today. He's still building a house. We've got a project coming up that he's working on, and but I spoke to him earlier today. Yeah, these people that are attacking the family still, I don't know what's wrong with them. I have absolutely no idea. Crazy. Um, Dawn says this case was corrupt. The judge was horrible. Um, if you have any evidence of the corruption itself, absolutely, there's a process of notifying the proper authorities. Do so, but I, it's easy to say. Um, I didn't see it. The Saint says, Mr. Steve, I do think the prosecution will try to bolster this case more in case of appeal. Absolutely. And hopefully they can get their experts a little bit more in the line of testing and what's there. And technologies may make all this a moot point in the future. Um, and because there's still stuff to be tested. Now I was saddened to find that yes, there's still stuff that was never sent off because they were fearful. And you know what would have happened if um, if it was the other way? I don't know, and not test everything. Let's see. I think that the town just never anticipated a crime like that in their town, although that shouldn't be the case. I hope Rich Allen really is the person who unalived the girls. I thought he was innocent. That's fair enough. You can have that. Like I said, I thought it was going to be a hung jury. Um, because I thought that the bullet testing negated that the bullet would get in there. But even without the bullet, there was still Richard Allen did everything he could to be to put himself as the offender. And so even without the bullet, I could see that while I always thought that it'd be probably a hung jury, I was hoping for a guilty verdict, but and it turned out to be. But like I said, I was all the way up till our show with Tom Webster until I heard all the people that were there in person and saw the atmosphere that was my first time of feeling confident with a guilty verdict. Miranda Lee says the judge was impressive, and if a man was in charge making the same decisions, nobody would complain. You and Mrs. Steve, y'all sound so much alike. She does the same thing. Oh, me. Cyber Warrior, good to see you. Come on, Saint, be nice. Ivy Rose says, I haven't followed the Idaho 4 case very closely, but from what I have seen, it seems there's been a big difference in how the two cases have been handled. And there was law enforcement, everything from their video canvas and collection of the videos to how technologies, the DNA discovery, all of that. But there's still going to be, and there still will be a great argument about it, just part of it. Sleuth Reloaded. Miranda Lee says, True Crime Web, you have no mods night? Yes, I'm at these late nights. My mods are home asleep. It was interesting, Todd, that when she made that statement, you never told me you was on the bridge. And that is an interesting statement. And that carries a lot of weight. I understand your interest in that. Yeah, Victoria. And I know judges have always decided admissibility and access to courtroom. Been the case forever. And of course, the media. But with the modern technologies, I still, and instructions of the court of where those cameras can be focused and how they're to be focused only within certain parts of the courtroom, that the technologies allow that ability. And why shouldn't they? Just because a judge has a certain opinion of it, I think that we, as American citizens, to make sure that our court systems are just so that we can see, because we have a great argument right now that we have a split across this country of individuals and YouTube channels of those that believe justice was found regarding Richard Allen being found guilty versus all these people that are on the other side. So would cameras in the courtrooms have changed anything? Don't know, but we know most certainly know what court without those cameras where we're at. Very kind of you, Anna. Abby and Libby's legacy lives on in that Mr. Steve started his channel because of their tragedy, and now he's helping lots of families. The girls yet live, and that we remember. Absolutely. Like I said, it was this case was what brought me into the YouTube world as trying to become a ambassador for law enforcement. And for that, I am extremely grateful. Code Grave, this is interesting. I think we will hear from the jury members once they've had time to read about all the excluded evidence. I don't think any evidence was excluded. Now, what is being portrayed out there as excluded may or may not, if any of the evidence was improperly excluded, the court allowed a lot of evidence, but if there was things that was improperly excluded, it's, at some point we'll get, if it's enough to overturn, then of course it won't be excluded next time. And so we'll just have to see, was anything excluded improperly? We'll have to see how the courts uphold that. Paula says, I was here right on time and had to refresh the screen. I'm so happy. I didn't miss much. Great. That's funny. And I agree with Anna here. If the jurors are smart, they will fade away and do no interviews. And we have to think about those jurors. Well, of course, the families have been affected as the loss of these two children. The jury, the people that sat on this jury, both the 12 that made the decisions and the alternate, they've had to witness things they never anticipated doing their civil service. And it's absolutely amazing of how people are able to take up that great responsibility and how they react and what they have to do with it, with that information, because they can't unsee a lot of the things that they've seen in the last 3 to 4 weeks. Yes, Don, this is absolutely right now. I hate even mentioning the offender's name. FarQ is a new member, new YouTube member. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Nanar said, I found myself very sad when the verdict came in. I guess I heard too many things that concerned me. I have to trust the jury, and I hope it really was him. Yeah, I mean, did I scream or jump up and down at this? No. My first thought instantly is that about Abby and Libby and, the officers. I've been there. And I can tell you from the law enforcement perspective that, yes, there is a sense of relief, of responsibility that you did your job. And while they've got a conviction, I'm hoping they will reflect upon that. Yes, I see where mistakes were made, and how can I improve that if we're ever faced with this again? How can we not create and make some of these same mistakes? And I'm hoping they'll take that into the future in the training of other individuals within law enforcement, for the fact that they were as if they had absolutely processed this and followed every bit of training that has to be out there. For the fact, like I said, I was there during the early stages, and I know how rigorous it was then. Surely it hasn't gotten easier. If it has, shame on that. For the fact that you should absolutely, in these types of situations, that when you have such a violent offender and a threat to a community, that you bring everything to the table. And I saw some things that shouldn't have occurred. Bamasin, how you doing? Thank you, Barbara Hall. Carol says, justice was served. Delighted with the jury. The amount of conspiracy around this case was insane. Allen put himself there, confessed, and knew details only the offender would know. Agree. Yes, Ivy, I was thinking it was going to be ongoing. Steve, you doing Evansdale's on here from start. I've been working on the Evansdale case. It's one of the our first code cases that the foundation took up. Um, uh, of course, started with Amber Crum case, Larry Crum, and through Larry met Drew, and we've working on that case. And of course, there's a lot of work to do on it. We've done a lot. And everything that we recover on that case, of course, we turn over to law enforcement as far as the tips. Um, Alexa says, I agree, Mr. Steve. I believe Richard Allen is a psychopath too. Thank you, Alexa. Like I said, while in my training, when they came in and they taught us our limited role of profiling and the training we had and what they were trying to do in the state of Georgia at that time, as far as getting law enforcement with the how profilers think and what they analyze and what goes on within the human mind. And it's a crash course. It's not to the extent that the in no shape, form, or fashion. Now, there are certain law enforcement officers out there that have spent years of their life in getting their advanced degrees and psychologies and everything about the human mind. That wasn't the case in the early days for law enforcement for us. Now, of course, law enforcement, there's a lot of people out there that have those degrees. And back in those early days in the 80s of when we were starting to see some of the advancement as far as profilers, even with the FBI, going in there and trying to establish and understand how these serial offenders in the early days of coming up with some of the databases, such as VICAP for linking crimes through certain information provided to agencies. That there was a lot of stuff going on back then, and it's moved and advanced a long ways. But it's people such as Alexa that has far more um, understanding of the human mind and emotion. Thank you, Carol. Ivy Rose says, I actually don't think he's a psychopath. I think he's able to compartmentalize that part of himself. And I understand compartmentalizing. Law enforcement, we do it. Um, I did it my career because seeing everything that I've seen in my life um, and just, can I think or there's a few memories that stick out, but without prompting, I really, without going out and reading the report, most of the stuff has been compartmentalized and I can't instantly recall it. Probably has a lot to do with age too, but um, and but the thousands and thousands of images I've seen, both through training and through cases I worked, that by the time we do testify on some of these horrible cases, we are so uh, callous from what our training has provided us that we're able to go out there and do our job without emotion. Richard Allen is a manipulator and plays people depending on what he needs. Classic psychopathic behavior. I think that he had more impact on his attorneys than his attorneys had impact on him. I absolutely agree with Alexa there. I think that he staged everything, um, and I for their that while people say that they instructed him how to do certain things, I think he's a quick learner. Carol says, anytime I see Breach Guy video, I see Alan. Oh man. Yeah. Anna says that she witnessed a deer drowning today. In Georgia, deer, uh, I've seen a lot of deer swim extended uh, distances in water. They're great swimmers. Todd says, why do you believe Delphi is not connected to Evansdale? I've been to both of them. I've done extensive work on Evansdale. I did a video of the similarities, and at one point, prior to becoming involved and working the Evansdale case, viewed it as we had, and this was before Richard Allen was found, had to look at it. But since working it and having the information I currently have, I see nothing that links the two. Yeah, like I said, I've worked on Evansdale for probably going on 2 years now. I, and but but I don't like I said, having visited both crime scenes, and now that we have a conviction and we have um, a offender that has been convicted of Delphi, but has no link to Evansdale, that is probably one of the greatest bits of information proving that there's no link. Six months ago, I would have bet money they found one of the girl's DNA in his car. I would have thought so, same, Ivy. Cyber Warrior says, I think Delphi and Evansdale are linked. Um, I have found nothing of that at this time. And Anna, this is a good point. Says that they are not linked. And it is an important point because the public must not believe Evansdale is solved because Delphi is officially solved. And that's what I was just stating prior to Anna. But also in a meeting I had recently when I was up there last month or the month before and speaking with some of the family. I know the documentary that came out about Evansdale, and one of the biggest complaints, or one of the biggest, not so much a complaint, but a problem that the family had with that documentary is that it almost addresses and makes people believe that Evansdale is solved. And if people believe Evansdale is solved and it's where the documentary is leading them, then people won't look into it. And so you have to view it from that. No, the family doesn't want you to believe that Evansdale is solved. It's not. There's danger still out there. The offender is still out there, and we have to look at it from that standpoint. That individual is out there and still a threat to our community. I don't know, Susan. I wonder if he threw it in the trash at CVS like the box cutter. I missed whatever was. I'm hoping that Doug does at some point after the gag order is over, and whatever appeal process that he does step forward and explain some things. Was the shack a code to the offender or just a film reference about fate? It appears it wasn't brought up in court. So evidently it was just something I believe was a strategy through the behavioral science unit, either with the FBI, state, because there's a lot of behavioral science out there that if it's a certain personality, that we might be able to trigger a certain response. And that's more than likely what occurred. Ivy Rose says, one of the questions I have for you is, could the state have used the phone's IMEI to get records of at least data usage? I don't know, but like I said, I got the report of where this last expert that analyzed and ran the data and extracted that information, that there's a lot of information in there that is critical that will be used not only with this case, and I wish they had found Richard Allen's 2017 phone to have done a comparative and see what that information would have, as far as all the tracking apps and data that would have been able accessed through that extraction. But I can see it being used on other cases also. The Saint says, I thought the prosecution didn't do great, if I'm honest, but they did just enough. They did. Thank you, Marion. That's very kind of you. Todd says that during the search, they apparently did find at least four 40 caliber guns. My goodness. Curtis Wrecking Crew West. There used to be an old wrestling team called the Wrecking Crew. Telling my age. Steve, it's my belief that Richard Allen's mother and wife intervened with Richard Allen's attempt to not only confess, but to plead guilty based on his phone call. What are your thoughts on that? It does appear so, but I saw Alexa and Sonny was on Drunk Turkey Show earlier tonight, and I asked something very similar about this, about women's intuition and what would override a woman's intuition to possibly look the other way, and with all that information, that if they were aware, and from a woman's perspective, and I'm not trying to put, Lord knows, I absolutely would never try to put what I believe a woman is trying to say or under, I don't put words in women's mouths. But Mrs. Steve will get me for that. But that sometimes their love will absolutely overshadow everything else, and there's protective measures, and that it will override all other feelings and understandings and thought processes. and that through their love of that person, that they will do everything to protect them and miss certain key points and details. Is that the case here? I don't know. Um, what led to the river search, though it was very expensive to pick up? I'm pretty sure it was Keegan Klein. Yes, Ivy Rose, I agree with you. I don't believe that the sticks were there used to conceal. I really don't believe so much that when Richard Allen says that he was, while he may have witnessed the white van, I don't. I think that at the point, a lot of things had already occurred, um, and as far as uh, the homicides of Abby and Libby, and that more than likely they occurred prior to that. For the fact that there's still a lot of that. If he was truly startled, what do we do when we're startled? We rush, we run off, we leave things in a mess. That wasn't the case with the crime scene. It was looking at what I saw in those images, if they're true, and what generations of the crime scene images that were leaked. I don't know that I had, but looking at them, everything was organized, well established, well placed. It wasn't something that you would think was rushed. So, but like I said, I, I believe, like you, that the sticks were placed there for a reason and in a very organized manner. Joanna says, if Richard Allen talks to his wife in the future on prison calls, will we be able to listen to them? Yes. All that is, if it's recorded, anyone can, if it's on the government lines, you can do that for you. Paula says, question, should the press have been allowed into the courtroom? Would it have affected the outcome at all? They were in the courtroom. There was a certain amount of press in there, just not the press that was allowed could only take notes, of course, not cameras. Corgi Mama says, goodbye, Steve. Best wishes. Let's see. Just trying to get caught up. DNA is left in only 10% of cases. I think that more likely that DNA is only collected in 10% of the cases. I think there's more DNA there that just isn't ever found, is the way I look at it. That it's just not collected. I believe that there is some type of DNA left, probably. I would imagine 100% of the time there is some type of DNA left from the offender's environment within a crime scene. Finding that DNA is the hard part. So it's probably only found in 10%. That's just my personal opinion of it. So, yeah, Lala, I'm still, who cleared him? I would think that the defense would have absolutely have brought that individual in to testify. Why was he cleared? Yeah, I don't like Anna. I don't like the Odinism either. Andrew says, I don't believe Allen wandered almost a mile covered in blood back to his car. His car was never identified at the CPS lot. Um, he says, um, you know, I take his word for it that he was, that's where he said, and I know that he identified it as a old, um, I can't remember the exact term that he used, but it would be in the same location. Todd says, as a detective, do you believe that after finding Richard and finally interrogating him, did the investigators immediately know they had just talked to Bridge guy? Were they freaking out afterwards? It depends on what was said during that initial statement. And that we know at some point, yes, there was a change that when they got that initial card from being discovered by the lady that went through the records that found the note that said cleared, and that first investigator looking at it and probably doing a comparative and going to do an interview with him. And there was at some point the tide turned. And when was that? I couldn't tell you. But yes, at some point um, through those early times, they said, hey, we got to look at this guy closer. And you'll see that typically that happens and they continue. And once it gets to a certain point, um, and that's when those probable cause arrest affidavits get put before a judge and get signed. Andrew James isn't happy with our the cost of the thing, and that's fine. I really don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's not like I disagree with Andrew that it's like North Korea. I don't believe so. Yeah, there was. It was a strange window of opportunity, and like I said, from my being on the trail, there is a key point in my videos that if you go there where there's a little curvature to the trail, whereas you can see all the way up to the Mears parking area, and you can also see the end of the bridge at that little key point. And um, and if you look down that path, that would give you that opportunity that if you check from that location, that it would give you at least a minimum of 11 minutes and possibly longer. Um, Steve, if you're trained in the read technique, can you explain how you tell the difference between someone being upset by questioning because they're guilty versus because they're innocent or being accused? Um, and that's the pro and cons of the technique is that um, using certain techniques, especially as upon certain individuals and certain mannerisms, that it can lead to false confessions. And it's up to the officer's integrity of, of determining and getting supporting evidence, not just from that offender, but are there other points that support his confession that make it where it's not something that you've created an atmosphere that is going to make him, which we have with Richard Allen. There's other things are supporting his confession other than I'm the one that did it. We have the injuries. You have that he spoke of. You have the white van. You have that I'm on the bridge. Um, I had a gun. I racked it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to think about, and that's when you think about, regardless of what techniques, and there's a lot of techniques out there about interviews, not just to read, but there's a lot of ways of applying pressure and hunting that supporting evidence. And that's what you want. You just don't want a confession by itself. You want supporting evidence that only the offender would know. Um, Maybe start a petition for cameras in the courtroom. Indiana has it, and I think the judge was actually on board for it, other than for the case that she was on. I just cannot picture Mr. Steve getting mad in any interviews. No, I don't get mad in interviews. Um, uh, Either they're going to tell me um, why, because going into interviews, every question you ask, you pretty well know the answer, or you hope you do. Um, and it's just so much simpler for the fact that in a lot of interviews, and especially with the, regardless of the crime, um, you're looking for the other details. Who's the other offenders? You know pretty well that this individual is the one that's responsible. Are they, or where they played some supporting role in the crime, and you're looking for certain details. Not all of it, but and that's some of the things that I believe has been lost in certain law enforcement as far as how you look at things and how you um, process information. Um, Hopefully, at one of these days, when I work with and able to let some of the people that we've worked with the cold cases explain um, how we look at things and how we analyze, and that they look at things and have looked at it for years, and see how law enforcement training has a alternative way of processing data. Hopefully, we'll get to share that with you. I'm looking forward to some of those interviews with some of our cold case families. That's very kind of you, Mustang. Thank you, Coach Ray. Nanar, Steve, you have a talent for being calm while explaining how you see things. I appreciate that so much, and you calm me. I don't know what to think or feel other than sad. Absolutely, and I understand. I'm sad also. I mean, when we realize that while we have a verdict, there's still the loss of. We have these two families that lost two absolutely gorgeous children to a monster. I'm just trying to get caught up in the chat. Hope it hadn't jumped. It jumps every now and then, guys. Yeah, I have no issues with Go. I think that uh, while I had my rathers that at a certain point would have went, but once the trial started, we didn't see what the circus continued that we know of in front of the jury because what was going on prior to the jury's presence was uh, not what I would have thought was been proper court decor, but it appears that all that settled down. And so thankfully, Lala says, I don't believe he is a psychopath. They never feel guilt. They never feel shame. They just don't care. Depression is not common to them. Um, and and my I don't believe that he's ever felt guilt. I don't believe he's ever been felt shame, um, and I don't think he's been depressed. I think all of that was a. This is just my personal opinion, um, and I guess speculating from a lot of the criminals I've seen, and some of them have been psychopaths. That and of course, not having seen Richard Allen, I am speculating totally on him. But the ones I have seen, yeah, what you say here is absolutely correct. And if he's acting as some of the other jail staff says that everything that Richard Allen did was an act, um, then I have biases for that. And you may be very well correct, Saint, that that video. And is there a possibility he has other victims? Yes, there is. The Saint said, "Is there a suspect in evidence?" Steve, you don't have to name anyone. Just wondering if there is someone people suspect. Um, we turn everything over to law enforcement every time that we develop any type of lead. I wish I could go into more. Lyle says, I think Delphi and Evidels are linked, but not through Richard Allen. There's a common denominator. Um, yeah, there's Predator. No, I mean, the press was in there, Paula. So, no, I don't think it. Curtis says, for Ruckus's nerve medications on your next trip together. His nerve medication is mine. Thank you. You don't know how hard it is to carry Ruckus's luggage and drive him around and make sure he doesn't get that he can find his way back to the car. It's like letting out a puppy. He just wanders the parking lot. But thank you for your contribution. Steve, you don't believe the undoing narrative then regarding the sticks. Um, the offender knows. They were there. There's a pattern to them. What that pattern is, only the offender would know. It was deliberate. They were placed. Um, I, I, in my opinion. Miranda says, why won't you answer any Evangel's questions anymore? You used to answer my questions. Only very general. I mean, I always answer the questions, but I have to be very general. I've never answered anything about any suspects or anything, Miranda. Mr. Steve, do you think there is another bullet out there? There's that possibility around that bridge. Absolutely. Um, um, because if the audio can hear the racking of the gun, it depends on, and that's on the bridge, then yes, there should be another bullet there if he carried it in a certain condition. Some individuals, um, uh, law enforcement would know if they found, when law enforcement found Richard Allen's gun, was it in a condition that there was a round in the chamber? If he normally carries a gun round in the chamber and you can hear the racking on the bridge, then yes, there's probably a bullet around the bridge. But that would be on how law enforcement found it at that time. That would give you a indicator of, should we be looking for another bullet? Mitzi Scott, good to see you. Marion Tate, thank you. Don, yeah, he may have just said van, but the knowledge of a van, um, of all the body styles out there, that's huge. Ah, thank you, Borgie, 1999 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Yeah, this is, like I said, I'm hoping they find that phone at some point. What if you're wrong and this is not the monster? Um, everything, the jury says that this is the monster. Um, and so I guess the jury and myself, um, you know, we have a large contingency of law enforcement, prosecutor, um, and at least 12 jurors that says that this is the monster. So I won't be by myself. It was a theory, he said. He testified that during the trial. Whenever he did the test with a box cutter, I'm not sure of the date. I did test with a box cutter myself just a few weeks ago. Mitzi Scott, $5. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Barbara says, I have learned by Mr. Steve, there's some things you just have to always keep to yourself in an investigation. Wait, wait, wait. Yes. there's always certain information that law enforcement keeps, and as we discover new evidence, we have to keep. Drew Conway, what do you think of the two offenders in Evansdale, and have you watched the documentary? I've not watched the documentary. I spoke to the family about some of the family members, and they're not real happy with that. It can be interpreted that the case is closed and that their individual is the responsible party. TC, Drew Conway, Mr. Steve, I'm sure glad enjoyed seeing you on the panel the other night. Yeah, I had a good time. I was honored that he even considered me being worthy to be on a part of that panel. Mrs. Scott gifted one True Crime Web membership. Thank you. Appreciate that. All righty, guys. Well, we've been here for an hour and a half. I want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate all the support. And like I said, it's all about Abby and Libby and, the families that have lost them, these absolutely beautiful children that lost their lives. And we should remember them, honor them. As I go back up to Iowa in the coming months, I will stop by again and I'll let y'all know. But in the meantime, like I said, have the families, the communities in your thoughts and prayers. Y'all take care, stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.